The Morristown Green, a central park echoing with the footfalls of Washington and his compatriots during the Revolutionary War, is not merely a serene escape, but a living testament to the town's pivotal role in shaping our nation. Morristown's history seamlessly intertwines with every individual who grew up there, creating a childhood rich in the echoes of the past and a vibrant spirit of community carried forward by each successive generation. These are their stories. This is Beyond the Green.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Green, where we talk about the people and places around Morristown. Today we have a special guest. She is Lisa Bolton from the Dandelion Project. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Lisa, why don't you tell the people who aren't familiar with the Dandelion Project on what exactly the project is?
The Dandelion Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that I started in memory of my children. I am a grief counselor, a grief coach. I'm an early childhood educator. So it primarily focuses on grief and trauma from any kind of loss, not just from a child's loss or all kinds of losses. And everything we do is 100% given back into the community. We don't charge grieving parents. We make bereavement boxes that people can sponsor in memory of their loved ones, but the person that it's going to doesn't get charged. Everything goes back into our community. I'm a grieving mom, so I remember the first time I went to a counselor, and it was, well, that's $100. And I thought, well, it's $100 to sit on your couch and cry. I can cry on my own couch for a whole lot less. So I can't look at a grieving parent or a grieving individual and it would eat my conscience away. I can't do that to them. So we function mostly on sponsors and donors, and we sell things to bring money back into it. But like I said, I'm a grieving mom. I've lost 3 children. So my first was my son in 1989. I lost him due to complications of my pregnancy. Back in 1989, they did not do for a grieving parent or of infant loss the way they do today. I was actually being wheeled out of the hospital, and the nurse drove me past the nursery and said to me, well, what did you do to cause your baby to die? So that was a horrible experience. And I have heard other similar to that, but back in 89, you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't turn to anybody, and so that ate at me. But we went on to have 2 healthy children afterwards, Carrie and Kevin. Their dad and I got divorced about 20 years later. I had sat on that grief for DJ for a long time and thought I had overcome it and I was okay when I married my high school sweetheart. And about 6 months later, my 18-year-old stepdaughter, Quinn, died from a rare form of encephalitis, autoimmune encephalitis. It's called anti-NMDA receptor encephalitis. She never got to come to our wedding. She never got to, we got married when she first got sick, and she never got to experience any of that. She died 2 weeks before her 19th birthday. Right around this time, I found out that my 26-year-old rainbow baby, Carrie, had started using, coke. She started with substance use disorder, and she struggled with that for about 6 years. But about 4 years after we lost Quinn, we lost Carrie to an overdose of heroin laced with fentanyl and carfentanil. So each time we have kind of tweaked what we're doing with the Dandelion Project to cover a broader spectrum of loss. Carrie wanted to raise awareness. She wanted to make sure that people understood that the recovery was possible and that it didn't have to end up the way she ended up. And so this is their legacy. I do all of what I do for them, for their legacy. I'm just their voices. And as with Carrie, a lot of the stuff that we do with overdose and recovery is because I refuse to let her die in vain. So if every interview and every billboard and every banner, she saves just one life, then she didn't die in vain, because she's doing, I'm doing this for her. And it's important to get out there that just because I lost my daughter doesn't mean that people have to lose theirs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you said that kind of touched a nerve with me. And going back when, you lost a baby back in '89, and the nurse said what she said to you. You know, something you and I have never discussed. Early on in my career, you know, I worked a couple of years in maternal fetal medicine.
Okay.
So I have seen my share of loss and heartache in that spectrum. And for a nurse to say that to you, I find that so incredulous to me. And you know, the funny thing is, I'm sure you weren't in a state of mind to turn around and, you know, slap her around a little bit. Excuse, you know,
No,
I'm not advocating violence by any way, but my God, is that arrogance or ignorance, you know, but that's it.
I
But
think it's a little bit of both.
yeah, yeah. But moving to Carrie, you know, I wonder, what I'd like to talk to you about is, can we talk about for you what grieving looked like for you when that happened?
Well, each one of the three that I've lost, the grief has been different. You know, DJ
Yeah.
was grief that I sat on. When I lost Quinn, I had thought that I had overcome that grief, but then that brought that back up, and I had to deal with that. And nobody really knew about DJ except his dad and I. And Carrie accidentally discovered me reading a report about him because I went down a rabbit hole, which I do. But I had read somewhere that what they did with the bodies of the babies back in '89 was not something I would have wanted for my son. So I was reading all the information that I had on him, and she found out. And then after that, she never, you know, she was upset with me for not telling her. And she was probably about 20-ish when she found out. And she never let me forget his day again. Like, she would call me up even if I wasn't thinking about it. So, and you know, Quinn was my stepdaughter. She was 18, and yes, I miss her terribly, but it wasn't until her mother lashed out at me and said, you don't know what it's like to bury a child. And of course she would. She did through no fault of her own. How would you know? You know, I'm your ex-husband's wife. Why would you know that? So that brought that up again and again. Carrie talked me through that. So even with her addiction, when Carrie was a teenager, you know, her dad and I got divorced, and she was the teenage, the mother-daughter headbutting years, toppled with a divorce. We had a rough few years, and I think her addiction actually brought us closer together because she knew I wasn't going to let her fall. If I could stop it, I would, you know. And we could talk until 3:00 in the morning sometimes. So we had a very, very close relationship right up through the end. So losing her was a shock because honestly, she and her youngest stepsister were down here visiting my husband and I, and we had, you know, we went to Universal and we went all over the place. She had made plans she wanted to move down here with us. And when she left me, she had, like, sometimes when she would turn to using again, I would know there would be something in her voice or there would be something in her mannerisms. And I'd be like, okay, well, I see this coming, so let's talk about this. Or she would call me and she'd be like, Mom, I'm not doing so good. And okay, well, we took we went 5 steps ahead. We're going to take 3 steps back. That's fine. We'll deal with it. You know, we always knew that was going to happen. But she, like I said, she was down here and she had gained weight and was doing her hair. She put on her makeup. We had a blast. She reconnected with her grandparents, which was something awesome to watch. And she left and she was fine. And I talked to her every night after she left for 9 days. And I talked to her 24 hours before I got the call, and I had let my guard down, I guess, because people had said, you know, when she was really in the throes of it, including a family member who was a police officer, said, you need to be prepared you're going to put her in a pine box one day if she keeps going this way. And he was right. But at that point, that's not what I needed to hear. I needed to hear somebody help me get her through this so I don't put her in a pine box, so I don't lose her. And she never gave me any indication. We were on the phone 24 hours before. We hung up, said, I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And time got away the next day. So, you know, she left a message. I left a message. And then at 5:11 on January 25th, I got the phone call, and it was her stepmom telling me that she had passed away, that she had gone out and I guess she used and she passed away. Her youngest brother found her in the tub and it was too late. She had been gone for a while. So that phone call, I remember getting it. I remember screaming. And now that I work in overdose, I hear that scream a lot. unfortunately. And then I just remember my husband taking over, like taking the phone and saying to her stepmom, like, what's going on? What happened? And then making some phone calls that I know I made them and I spoke to people, but I can't tell you honestly what I said. And then like my brother took over with contacting people and my best friend took over with contacting people, because it was just, I let my guard down. So at that point, I could honestly say I never saw it coming. If it had been a month earlier or 2 months earlier, maybe. But at that moment in time, I didn't expect it. So I got totally blindsided and it wasn't real. There was like, no, she's not gone. There's no way. I just talked to her the other night, and it took a lot for me to be able to accept it. And I've never been angry with her. I've never been angry at God. I've just been angry at the world, because that's the way I deal with grief. I miss her every single second of every single day. There isn't anything that I do that isn't with her in the forefront of it. It's my way to honor her, and it's my way to grieve, and it's my way to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think before we move on and talk about the event that's coming up in a couple of weeks, what would you tell people as far as when you're talking about addiction? What would be some of the telltale signs that, kids do a great job of hiding these things? Could you give some advice to parents on some things to look for?
I think more importantly, it's keep the lines of communication open, because if you don't keep the lines of communication open, you're going to miss every single sign. You're going to miss the depression. You're going to miss the acting out. And I'm not saying that every child that's depressed or acting out is going to turn to drugs, but those are telltale signs of some hidden trauma that's going on that they're having a difficult time dealing with. A lot of kids with mental health issues will turn to substance use disorder, because it's a Band-Aid, and that's what they don't understand. Yes, you feel great at that moment, but you're going to come down, and the situation and the pain is still going to be here. So I think if, as communities and families, if we can keep the lines of communication open and let people who are suffering, whether it's a mental health issue or whether it's just a trauma issue, that there's people they can turn to that doesn't need to end badly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now you've turned your own grief into this project. And for those in Morris County now, you have an event coming up on October 11th.
So we do banners, we do memorial services, we do events. So a friend of mine contacted me and asked me how I had put Kerry on a billboard for with this organization called Leona's Legacy of Love. We've teamed up, and the founder, Christy, Leona's mom, she called me up and she said, "How would you like to do a billboard together?" And I thought, well, let's look into New Jersey. And then we found out that it hasn't been one in New Jersey, especially in the area that we are from. I was born in Livingston, and then I grew up in Randolph. Kerry was born in Byram, and she grew up all in that area, Bud Lake and Byram and all that. So we are from that area. We spent a lot of time up at the Rockaway Mall as kids. I'm from that generation where that's what we did. Friday night, we went up to the Rockaway Mall. And Kerry spent her fair share of time up there. So it is in the area that we're from, and it's the first one there. So it's huge, because I think it's like the other point I wanted to look at was the shore, because she loved being down the shore. So, but this one came available in Wharton, and I'm so excited to be able to do this, because, she's going to be out there on Route 15 for 30 days, and everybody can see what a difference she's making. She and Leona, and, there's 22 faces. So 20 other faces besides our girls are going to be up there on a digital billboard that gets over 14,000 views a week.
Yeah. That's
148,000 views a week.
And so this billboard is located where? It
is located pretty much in the parking lot of the Townsquare Diner. So it's on Route 15 in Wharton. But it's like the intersection where you could go to the mall. I think that's Mount Pleasant Ave, right?
Mount Pleasant Ave.
Yeah. I haven't been up there. I haven't been in that area.
Yeah. And so it's, I think it's still Rockaway as you're approaching where the ShopRite is there, I believe.
Yes. Bob's Furniture, I believe, is there. It used to be, for those of us that are older, the roller rink.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then that's going to take place on October 11th,
Mm-hmm.
where they're going to reveal the banner, the billboard, at 11:15.
Well, it goes live on October 6th, so you will get to
October
see it
6th.
ahead of
Okay.
time. But the
Okay.
actual reveal, where we've invited the parents of the kids on the billboard, because most of them
Hmm.
are from New Jersey. We tried to reach out
Okay.
to a lot of Jersey families first and foremost, and then
Hmm.
when we didn't get those last few spots, we reached out to others. But most
Okay.
of the people on the billboard are from New Jersey. So we're assembling at the billboard at 11:15, and
Hmm.
we'll say a few words, and maybe we'll say a prayer over the kids, and we'll say their names, and then we're going to move up to the Knotty Pine
Hmm.
pub, where he has graciously offered to host this event for us. So there'll be vendors. He's going to put a buffet together for us, and we'll have some speakers. The Hope One van will be there. The DARE program. It's not
Hmm.
really DARE. It's PAARI, and I forget what it stands for, so I apologize. But they're all going to be there, and we're going to have some guest speakers about loss and about recovery and about grief. And I'm looking forward to a nice event for the first time
Yeah.
in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's a great cause, and it's a great way to remember those that you have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you when we first started talking, um, you're to have such loss in your life, the way you had it, you are very strong,
Thank you.
and to be able to take that grief and loss and turn it to the Dandelion Project, I think is amazing. There are people that I've seen who have such loss who never recover from it, and their life somewhat spirals out of control. And
Yes.
you know, going back, and I don't want to drill down too far on this.
No.
Um, do you think, for you personally, when you found out that she passed, did you was there a burden for you personally? Did you feel like there's more you could have done?
Yes. I still feel that way. And we're coming up on 7 years in January. I still
Hmm.
feel that way. I mean, I know from everything that I've learned that there was nothing that I could have done to change the outcome if that was what the
Hmm.
outcome was going to be. Maybe prolonged it a little bit. But yeah, it's a battle that I go through every single day, thinking I should have done something else. I should have done more. What is it that I missed? I'm her mom, and it's my
Hmm.
job to protect her, and I should have been able to
Hmm.
protect her and save her. And those are the moments that I feel like, I didn't do my job.
Sure. Do you think that's a common thread with majority of the
Oh
parents when
yeah,
they leave?
absolutely. Everybody that we talk to will tell you the same thing. That they never thought it was going to be their child, and that they provided for them, and they came from this. The thing with
Hmm.
addiction is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't
Right.
choose. It
Right.
Carrie was a talented artist and writer. She was a 4.0 college graduate. She had a BA in forensic psychology. She worked with autistic kids. She actually worked for the child care center that I started out in, and she was there as a baby for a little
Hmm.
while. And she loved with her whole heart. And this is a familiar line with all the parents too. She had a smile that lit up the room. The most contagious laugh there was. All of our kids, if you looked at when people tell me their children's story, it's all the same thing,
Hmm.
and it's people just think it's not going to be my child. Well, Carrie went through the DARE program, and Carrie was raised by parents who told her, that she knew that she was loved by us, and she knew, the harms of drug use, but she had uncles in the police department, and so she was aware of all that. But yet, she had things in her life, which are her stories to tell, not mine, that affected her choices. And yes, initially it was a choice, because I've had people say that to me too. Well, your daughter chose to die. No, my daughter did not choose to die. She made a choice one day to ease some pain, and then that choice turned into a disease that affected her brain, and then she died. She didn't wake up one morning 6 years earlier and say, "Oh, I'm going to start using today, and in 6 years I'm going to destroy my mom and dad and my baby brother." That's not what happened, And people that will irritates me to the core of my soul, because
Hmm.
none of our kids chose this. Nobody chose to die.
Yeah.
It's just what happened.
Yeah.
And it's important to turn the pain into purpose, because if you you can't, until you start to heal, you're actually hurting the child that you've lost, because that's not what they want. That's not what they wanted when they were here. It's not what they want now.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you still have a child still living, correct?
Yes, I have a stepdaughter and my youngest son.
How has he dealt with things over the last 7 years?
Unfortunately, we are estranged right now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But he is the one that found her, and I know from people that have stayed in contact or just keep an eye on him out there for me, whether he believes that I'm keeping an eye on him or not, I am. And they will tell me if they've seen him or what's going on. My ex-in-laws, my nieces and nephews are also my godchildren, so a lot of them will fill me in on what's going on.
Sure.
Because the one thing that I had promised Carrie was, if anything had ever happened to her, that he would know that she never meant to leave him. They were very, very close. And I can only imagine what he's going through. And I can only hope that one day we can repair the rift between the two of us. I also have a 26-year-old stepdaughter who I just adore as well. So,
yeah. Is he still in New Jersey then?
Yes.
Do you think he knows about this event?
It's been we've publicized it on Facebook. I've done a couple of news reports down here where they've said that I'm coming up to New Jersey. So I'm hoping somebody sees this and lets him know. And if he doesn't want to come and see me, that's fine. I just want him to come and I want to put eyes on him and know that he's okay. And I want him to see the difference that his sister is making.
Yeah. Well, the event again is October 11th, right? 11:15 at Townsquare Diner.
Right, at the billboard.
In Rockaway there, Route 15. And then from 12 to 4 at the Knotty Pines.
Yes.
Right? And we'll post, if anybody needs to know, would like to know more about the Dandelion Project, look below in the descriptions. We'll have all their web pages. We'll also give you the particulars of this event again. And check out their website if you have any questions. Check them out. I'm sure Lisa will answer all emails that you have.
Actually, if I can, we just started a new initiative with the Faces of Hope. Carrie's favorite acronym was HOPE. Hold on, pain ends. As a grieving mom, we can tell you, pain doesn't end. It will ease. And we can move on. We can go on. I hate the whole moving forward thing, but we can go on from here. So we have, they're banner sets. There's 12 faces of loss on one and 12 faces of recovery on the other. They don't get printed until there's 12 and 12, so that we can show for every loss, we have one that is saved. And so that when I give my little speech, I can say, which banner do you want to be on? Because Carrie and I want you on the recovery banner. So we're on set 4, and the Dandelion Project we are doing the first 5 sets, and then we will get sponsors and donors to do the rest. But we have 4 completed sets. We are almost complete with 5. I'm hoping to bring all 5 sets up with me so that we can display it at the event, because that would be really awesome. But it's also an initiative that's open anywhere. A couple people think that if they didn't live in Florida, they couldn't be on the banners. But I don't care if you're in California. I don't care if you're over in Ireland. It doesn't matter where you are. If you want your loved one or one that's in recovery, if you want to tell your story, we have little booklets that go with it. So the banners are in there, and then there's a little story for each, for the losses and then for the recovery. So, and we've got a good response down here, so I'm hoping to bring it elsewhere.
Yeah. I think it's a really great event. And like I said to you earlier, a great way to attribute to your daughter.
Well, the one last thing I want to tell you is our logo was actually my daughter's drawing. She was, I told you before, she was an artist. She used to doodle. So usually she did a lot of doodling when she was either slipping or thinking of it. And she sent me a text at 3:00 in the morning. I had gone back to become a stillbirth doula. And the girl I was going to school with said, "Oh my gosh, what you guys want to do?" Because Carrie and I want to do this together. What you want to do is spread love the way a dandelion spreads its seeds. You should call it the Dandelion Project. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I like that. Well, 3:00 in the morning, Carrie sends me a picture of a dandelion. So I send her, I call her back and I'm like, why are you texting me at 3 a.m? And of course, her being my daughter, she said, well, why the hell are you texting me back at 3 o'clock in the morning? And so I said, did I tell you Miss Laura said we should name it the Dandelion Project? She said, no, you didn't. But now we have a name. So that's how it became the Dandelion Project. And her dandelion is our logo. With my youngest, with Jamie's help, my youngest stepdaughter, we tweaked it here and there. There's a heart, which stands for Quinn. And then there's a handprint of me and my son, Kevin, when he was young, doing the I love you sign as all part of the logo. So they've all had a hand in it.
Nice. Well, again, October 11th.
Yep.
11:15, and then from 12 to 4 at the Knotty Pines.
Yes, please come out and see us.
Once again, you are Lisa Bolton, the founder of the Dandelion Project. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime. So until next time, everybody, you've been watching Beyond the Green. And until next time, be good to each other.